Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of the Mo Money Podcast. This is episode 35, and I am your host, Jessica Morehouse. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today on the show, I have a very inspiring guest. Her name is Stefanie O'Connell, and she is a millennial money expert. And I've known her for a little while. She's had a blog, The Broken Beautiful Life, and now she's just going with her name, kind of like myself, StefanieO'Connell.com. And she is everywhere. The reason I contacted her is she just kept on popping up on my LinkedIn and on my Facebook and everywhere. And so I'm like, all right, this girl's doing some crazy stuff. I need to sit down and talk with her for the podcast. And so she said yes. And here we are. So in this episode, we're going to talk about her story, how she started, out as an actress, and now how she kind of switched gears and is all about personal finance and educating other millennials on how they can pursue their dreams the money smart way. Thank you, Stefanie, for joining me on the show today. Thanks so much for taking some time out of your busy day for chit-chatting with me.
Thanks for having me here.
No problem. So let's jump in. So did you always want to be an actress?
Oh, yeah. I was like that theater geek from the first time I saw a musical. I think I was in third grade, and my mom took me to the middle school to see Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. And I became bizarrely obsessed with the state of Oklahoma rather than the art form of musicals. So I looked for any excuse to start singing the song Oklahoma, and so I did this voluntary report on the state of Oklahoma so I could sing the song in front of my class.
That's amazing.
I was obsessed.
That's amazing. Have you been to Oklahoma?
Yeah, now I've been, and I actually had a job on the national tour of Oklahoma too. So
that's awesome.
Dreams realized, right?
Whoa.
But it was just very strange. And then it evolved, obviously, and I went to school for theater, and I was in professional theater for 7 years. Well, actually, my whole adult life. So,
wow, yeah. That's awesome. So where did you go to school?
I went to NYU. I went to the Tisch School of the Arts. Ooh. And their musical theater program. Yeah.
That's a really good program. That's awesome.
Well, it was the only one I knew of. So if I hadn't gotten in there, I would have just been a psych major, probably. I was so ill-informed when I was applying for school. I was still a psych major, but I was a double major. So
yeah. Well, that's I think most of us as teenagers, when it was like, what do you want to do for a living? Where do you want to go to school? It's like, I don't know. I didn't do too much research when it came to university either. I went to the one that was closest to my house, basically. So after school, and then you moved to, you're not from New York City, are you?
I'm from the suburbs, so I'm not too far out. My family's about 45 minutes away from downtown Manhattan.
Okay. And then you made the kind of typical movie. You moved to NYC to be an actress on Broadway.
Right. Sounds very glamorous.
It does. Yeah. It does.
It is really not. Particularly in the year that I graduated, which was 2008, because of the financial collapse.
Yep.
And theater is about the most discretionary expense out there. So that's one of the first things people stop spending money on. So it was a really hard time.
Did you have, how long was it from graduation to finding your first gig?
Okay, well, I was ridiculously lucky. So I went to school in New York City. That meant I could start auditioning because I lived here while I was still in school. So I actually had my first gig before graduation.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it was on the books. And then about 3 weeks after the graduation ceremony, I left. It was a tour in Asia of the musical Cinderella. And it was supposed to be for a year and open-ended and running all over the place, from China to the Philippines to Singapore to Japan.
Wow.
And I got about 7 months through it when financial collapse happened in the middle of it, and then the producers pulled the plug because it wasn't financially viable anymore in the world economy. Mm-hmm. So I came back to New York in January 2009 and had my moment of, oh, crap, I'm an unemployed theater major. What am I going to do?
Mm-hmm. And I guess kind of at that point, because you were so lucky getting a job so quickly, you didn't really have a plan B at that point.
I was very lucky, though, in that I had saved all of my salary during those previous 7 months because we got a daily per diem. Mm-hmm. So I only lived off of my per diem, and I didn't touch any of my earnings, even though it was only $450 a week, which isn't much after taxes. Because I wasn't using it for living expenses, I had saved up about $12,000.
Wow. So you were kind of naturally good with your money.
Well, my parents were like, it's funny because I come from an upper middle class childhood and home, but my parents were always like very frugal. Like everyone else had, this is a really first world indication of where I come from. Everybody had like a car when they were 16, and like I took the bus to high school as a senior. Like it just wasn't part of the vocabulary, even though they could afford to buy us a car. That wasn't the value system that they had. And so it was never the value system I had. And obviously I'm really grateful for it.
Yeah, absolutely. This was some really great life skills. I'm the same way. I'm, glad that my parents didn't kind of spoil me or didn't get everything that I wanted when I was younger, because as an adult, I'm like, well, now I know how to live without those things. So it's not a big deal.
Exactly.
So when you came back and you were unemployed, was that kind of when you started kind of self-educating yourself on finance and eventually started your own blog?
Yeah, so I would say it was probably about another year or two before I became really into personal finance. And over the course of those 2 years, I was getting job offers that were like $200 a week, $300 a week before taxes. So I was like, this is just like not viable.
No.
And as I was doing more and more shows, I was working with colleagues who had been in the business for years. And what I was finding was that even the people who had quote unquote made it, they only make it for however a period of time the contract is. Right. So like when that ends, they're back to, oh no, how am I going to make it to the next job? It's a very unsustainable way of living. And like I said, even if you make it, that's not it. That's not the end. And so it was like a couple years of like going through these low paying gigs myself and working alongside people who had like been on this roller coaster ride that I was like, okay, well, what's the solution? Because I don't want to like live my life in this cycle of starving or thriving. I want something better.
Yeah.
And so, and that's how I got into personal finance. Actually, one of my mentors in theater was into like entrepreneurship and business, and he recommended a bunch of books. He recommended Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Millionaire Mind, and I started reading them, and then that just kind of set off a chain of personal finance reading. I must have read like 20 personal finance books in a row, and I just became totally obsessed.
Totally. Yeah. No, that sounds exactly like my situation. You just read one and you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
Yeah. You know what it is? It's like this feeling of control. I'm like a control freak, and in the arts, there is zero control over anything. Like there's so much that's like about how tall you are, what color your hair is, what, I don't know. There's so many other factors that you walk into a room, you do what you do, but it doesn't really matter because there's so many things beyond what you can do. But with your finances, it's like the opposite. It's like, I am choosing to spend this money, or I am choosing to save this money, or I'm choosing to invest this money. And for me, that was like, even though I didn't have a lot, it was really empowering to realize that.
Absolutely. And whereas, I bet with acting, a lot of, success comes down to luck.
Yeah.
Whereas with finance, I don't believe so. I feel like you can make your own financial future just by the choices you make.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's awesome. So you started your blog, The Broken Beautiful Life, which I love that name. And how long have you had your blog, by the way?
It's been about 2.5, 3 years. 3 years. Let's say 3.
Okay. 3 years. Sounds good. And eventually you got the idea to write your own book.
Yeah. So the blog was doing really well. And a publisher reached out to me and said, would you be interested in turning this into a book? And I said, well, got nothing to lose. Why not? So yeah. I did.
That's amazing. So is the book kind of a reflection of the content you're writing on your blog, or is it a bit more, a little different perspective?
I like to think of it as my blog in more of a comprehensive narrative format. So telling my story, my perspective, and then the lessons learned that are applicable to anyone who is trying to harness some control over their lives via personal finance. So it's meant to be giving you some basic financial knowledge, and while also inspiring and empowering to, take that next step. Because, information alone, I always say, isn't enough. There has to be a story. There has to be inspiration. And I hope to be able to communicate with younger audiences that may not have identified with the likes of Dave Ramsey or Sue Zorman or whoever else, who, the people that are the go-to gurus aren't really going through the same things that you and I are. So I wanted to write this book to be a new voice of this generation.
And I think that's, very well said, because when I kind of just think of some of the personal finance books out there, none of them are really written by people in our, generation
right.
wise.
And it's a very different perspective. I mean,
it is. And I don't, I was just reading your website today, and there's something that said kind of changing your personal brand, where, lots of people consider millennials, they have that kind of bad connotation of being lazy and living with their parents forever and blah, blah, blah. It's like, actually, from lots of the millennials that I know, we've actually had a pretty damn tough time. We've spent thousands of dollars going to school to get a good career, and then we can't get a good career because there are no jobs.
Exactly. I mean, the circumstances were very abysmal, and it's awesome to me to see how many people have taken those circumstances and turned them into opportunity, like you and I have, and, in tech and everywhere else. I mean, it's really just fascinating to see. I am blown away by the millennials. I think they're awesome, not just because I am one either.
Totally agree, and not just because I'm also a millennial. But so let's kind of talk more about your book. What are kind of some of the key takeaways that someone would get if they bought your book and read through it?
So it's a lot about how you think about your spending, as well as giving you very practical strategies for, okay, I'm here in the store and I'm tempted to buy this right now. What can I do to put this money into a savings account instead? So it's a combination of mindset and like implementation, I would say. I like that a lot, because I do find, and it's something that lots of people don't really probably just think about, is that money management is so psychological. A lot of it has to do with, if you're overspending, well, what are the reasons behind that? And it's, usually pretty damn fixable if you just kind of really get to the core issue. And sometimes it's like, kind of like overeating. Why are you overeating? It's because maybe you're emotional, or there's something traumatic that happened to you, or you're stressed or something like that. The same thing kind of goes with money management, I believe. Oh, exactly. I delve into that quite a bit actually in the book, and like what forms our mindsets, what forms our habits, and what can we do to change them to better serve our goals and values and priorities.
Absolutely. So, you have this book, which is awesome. And it seems like you've kind of taken off, and it could just be because I'm following you on social media. I'm like, damn, Stefanie's doing a lot of stuff. I need to get on it, which is awesome to see. But, you're kind of becoming more of a financial expert out there in the media as well, which is great, because then you're getting your message across to people that may not, know about you right away. And so I'm kind of wondering, although you started as an actress, but now you've kind of, migrated to this personal finance sphere, what do you kind of see for yourself? Are you still kind of pursuing that actress dream career, or are you kind of thinking something different for yourself now?
Well, I read something recently that something you should take your skills and two disparate skills and create something new out of them. And I don't know if you ever watched Glee or anything, but they always did these mashups of like two totally different songs, and it created this brand new, really awesome song. So I'm kind of thinking of my career in that way. And like, I'm taking this acting background skill set, and I'm taking this vast amount of financial knowledge I've gained over the last 5 years, and I'm kind of making this mashup to create this brand new kind of career that I never thought was even... It wasn't even on my radar before, but I'm so excited about it. Like, I love what I do. And it's different from acting in that I love it every day. With acting, it was very like, I love it when I'm working and I hate it all the rest of the time.
Yeah.
And here, like, I'm genuinely excited about what I'm doing every single day. And it's such a blessing. So, yeah, like you said, I am going into that media space. I am trying to branch out. I've done a lot in the content space as an author and as a blogger. A lot of where I have had experiences is in writing and blogging, copywriting, but I do want to merge the acting skill set to go do more speaking and do some brand partnerships and really bring this message out to people face to face, because I think that's where it makes the biggest impact.
Absolutely. One thing I'm wondering, since you do come from an acting background, and you probably talk to a lot of people in acting, is that something that kind of inspired you to also get interested in personal finance? Because you work with all these, people that are so talented, but they don't make a lot of money. And when they do make money, they just don't know how to manage it. And also just for, if anyone's listening and they're thinking about, getting a job in the arts, and, I went to art school myself. And what kind of pieces of advice would you give to someone who still just wants to pursue a job in the arts?
So, yeah, very much so. I am inspired by my own acting background and the, I don't want to say plight of my fellow artists, but yeah, like there is this starving artist stereotype that gets perpetuated.
Yes.
And I hate it. I think we just accept that. And I know I did. Even when I was really into personal finance, I still was like, okay, well, I'm really good with the money. I just don't have a lot of it because I'm an artist, and that is the way it is. And it really took a long time before I realized, I can leverage my skill set to make a ton of money, but I have to kind of get rid of this mindset. Anyway, I'm going off track here.
No, I love it. I love this.
It has inspired me to write about personal finance, yes. In terms of tips for artists, my biggest thing is that you have to get grounded in the numbers. So for artists, have what I call the make or break number, and that is like your bare bones cost of living plus funding for your financial goals, which can be split between short and long-term savings and debt payoff. And you have to know what that number is for yourself on a monthly basis and commit to making at least that amount of money each month. Because if you're not making at least that amount of money each month, either through your art or through survival jobs, then you are taking away your future freedom to continue pursuing your art. Now, if you want to do anything else on top of that, discretionary spending or whatever, then you have a choice to make. You can say, okay, I'm going to work more hours at my survival job or whatever to make more money so I can have these discretionary expenses. Or you can say, no, I'm going to live on bare bones this month so I can spend more time pursuing my art. So that number, the make or break number, kind of gives you a threshold by which you can really live your life and make those kinds of trade-offs that you do as an artist while still taking care of your financial goals and your bare bones needs.
I like that this survival job, like I love how you said that, because I was just kind of thinking, talking about like millennial money and just people working in arts. Even though I didn't, I went to film school, but I didn't pursue a job in that. I still always had this mentality, and it could just, and a lot of people I know my age do, that in order to kind of eventually reach or be able to afford that lifestyle that you want, you kind of can't have just one job. And I was just thinking, like, I don't think, since I've graduated university, I don't think I've ever had just one job. I've had multiple jobs, and I can't see me ever giving up any of those jobs.
Well, I think the narrative of having one job for anybody is over. Like, that's done.
I agree with that.
Yeah, millionaires have, an average of 7 income streams.
Is that right?
So I figure I want to be a millionaire. I'm working on it.
Yeah. I think there's just the idea of the hustle, which, me and my husband both, we're just, have a lot of different kind of things going on at the same time. And that's just kind of our new normal. And I think that's just kind of the new normal of our generation.
I think it has to be. And I think it's a good thing, because I think it forces people to diversify not only their income streams, but their sources of fulfillment. One of the other things that I think artists fall into this trap of, like, I can only do this one thing, and doing anything else and having joy around anything else is detracting from the art. And I think that's bullshit. I think I think diversity of income and diversity, of joy and happiness and career and pursuit, makes you a fuller person, makes you more able to contribute, makes you more informed about different things, that allows you to bring new insights into old things. I was talking about before about this mashup of careers. Like I'm so valuable now in this industry I never thought I'd be valuable in, because I'm bringing this skill set of performance and storytelling that really hasn't existed in the financial services industry, right? So those are two very disparate things, but together they form something really powerful. And so by pursuing a lot of different income streams, a lot of different passions, like you just make yourself more valuable.
And I think there's something to be said just to have, I mean, the whole idea of financial security, I mean, back in, my parents' generation, my grandparents, even, there was, a guaranteed pension, or, you were able to work for a job for 30 years and not worry about losing your job. Whereas it's like, that's not a thing anymore. I mean,
exactly.
Like the job I currently have is my day job. I work in digital marketing. That job didn't exist 4 or 5 years ago, but exists now. So what's going to exist in another 5 years? So I'm kind of constantly evolving to kind of keep up with the changes, which is, I think, why it's so important to have multiple streams of income, a couple different jobs. And also it's great to just always expand your skill set. Because I think there's, like you said, some, people in acting always think they can only do one thing. And I'm sure you, like, I don't know, but I was just thinking, like, did you face, some criticism for not just sticking to acting, but, pursuing other things?
Well, there's always this thing like, oh, well, you're not doing it acting full time, so you're less committed to it.
And you're less of an actor.
Right. And I think that's more of like just a rumbling from some minor subset of people. But I don't think so. I'm also a better actor now because I'm not so freaking insecure every time I walk into a room. Like I don't need the job to survive.
I like that.
Yeah. And I feel free and I feel confident. And that is, I got to tell you, making more money is everything I hoped it would be.
It's always better having more money. And I totally agree with you. The more money that I've saved, been able to invest and just make, the more confident and happy I am. And it's not to say that, money brings happiness, but it does bring a little bit of, freedom. I feel like if I lose my job, I won't be screwed tomorrow.
Exactly. You have options, you have choices. And I think it's that freedom of choice that's what everybody wants.
Yeah. And that's what you're saving for. And I think that's the key thing that people need to remember, especially in our generation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed talking with you, and I'm going to encourage everyone to buy your book. I'm going to read it myself. I'm very excited about that. And I'm really excited to see kind of where you go and where you take off. I definitely can see you on some, too. I can see you being a host or on a reality show.
You know what? Last night I actually wrote out my dream bio because I was like trying to like have a direction. So
yes.
We'll see. Like that was definitely in the dream bio, being a host of like a talk show.
I could see it. Well, thank you.
How it goes. You'll have to come on my talk show then.
Just tell me when. I'll be there. I'll buy my flight right away. Well, thanks again for joining me, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much.
I hope you enjoyed episode 35 of the Mo Money podcast. Remember, if you want to read more about today's show, more about Stefanie, go check out the show notes for this episode at jessicamorehouse.com/35. And of course, if you have any questions you want to get in touch with me, please do so. Just email me, jessica@jessicamorehouse.com. Not that tricky. Or tweet me, Facebook me, whatever.